Today we have in our studio the cast and crew of the upcoming horror film Lilith, which was managed to create an immense amount of buzz. The crew is going to evaluate the process of making their respective texts, which include the teaser, poster and magazine cover, and any problems that occurred during the production. We have with us Danish, Kieran, Neha and Jamila, who will be answering questions in their area of expertise and explaining their role to the other members.
Lilith is a supernatural horror with a psychological element to it. We initially decided on a supernatural horror and decided that a psychological twist should be added to make the plot a bit more complex and interesting, and make the audience use their intellect a bit more than the conventional horror film. Our initial inspirations were the films American Horror Story and The Woman in Black. We thought that these films have a great mix of supernatural and psychological horror, with great mise-en-scène, especially the costumes used in American Horror Story. We thought this costume was especially effective as it catches the audience's eye straight away. The bright white colours portray ghostly spirits and immediately draw the audience's attention. Similarly, in Lilith, we decided to use costumes which were used in the American Horror Story. This was the nuns dressed in white. We thought that similar to American Horror Story, this costume would portray the Salem witches in the most effective way. We used a wide variety of shots to do this. This included high-angle shots, low-angle, pans and zooms. A very effective shot that we used in the teaser trailer of our movie was a high-angle shot of Salem witches surrounding Malia, the possessed girl. We thought that this shot would have a great effect on the audience, as it would give them a sense of the power of Lilith and him looking over the vulnerable and innocent girl. For the opening shot of our teaser trailer, we got inspiration from films such as The Conjuring and Insidious. In these movies, the opening shots of the teaser trailer consisted of a haunted house. This straight away gives the audience an idea that the film is a horror. We decided that we would do something like this, but would challenge the usual conventions of the horror movie. Instead of having a haunted house, which is a usual choice in many horror films, we decided to have tall trees in the jungle as our opening shot. This went against many of the usual conventions of horror film, as it did not give the audience an idea that it is a horror story straight away. This made our teaser trailer more unique and therefore more favourable. We thought that the use of intertitles in the house at the end of the street was very effective. The titles that they used were very simple yet sophisticated, which complemented the trailer extremely well. Looking at this, we decided that we would do a similar font, which would be simple to read and not too fancy, but would have a bit of a religious message behind it. This is because our trailer shows the audience that there are some religious elements to the film. Our title, which was called Lilith, was a good font, and the T was changed from a T to a cross. This would portray the religious elements of the film along with the supernatural and psychological subgenres. The main character in the film is Melia, who is a young and innocent girl possessed by the powers of Lilith. We thought that a young girl around the age of 14 to 17 would be perfect for this role, as it shows how vulnerable young girls are in being possessed, as they are portrayed by weak as society. This was in conjunction with real media products, as we thought that we should have some conventions similar to real-world media products. This is because in many horror movies, which include possession, they usually include women who are young or old. This is because women are usually seen as weak by society and much more vulnerable to demonic possessions. Lilith is a low-budget Hollywood film. This is because most horror movies in the American Hollywood market are low-budget. Some low-budget horror movies include Insidious, The Conjuring, and Haunting in Connecticut. Supernatural horrors are usually low-budget. This is because, unlike action movies, famous Hollywood stars are not needed to attract audiences in large numbers. Horror movies do not need such actors, as the element of horror is enough to engage the audience fully in watching the film. Films like Insidious use relatively unknown actors like Patrick Wilson and Barbara Hershey. This is a very effective way of portraying the horror genre, as well-known actors acting in horror movies will remove the originality of the genre, as the audiences will portray that actor as they do in most conventional Hollywood films. Also, our film challenged the conventional setting of the USA, where most Hollywood films are shot. Instead, our film was shot in London, where a minority of Hollywood films are usually filmed. Lilith is a very unique film, as it has a wide variety of subgenres included in the film. These include supernatural horror with a psychological and religious element to it.